of room 112 and 113. If you want to review the Open Meetings Act, you can find it at aog.nebraska.gov, .ne.gov, /open-meetings, or you can review it in state statute at 84-1401 through 84-1414. Now I think you can take it away, Dennis.
All right, thanks, Sean. Okay, so today we are going to do Pam's budget hearings, but before we get into her 3 different budgets, I think we need to start by touching base on what's happening with our current year numbers. And we had talked at mid-year that that we would most likely amend both the bridge fund and the highway fund. But after talking with Pam, I think we're at the point where we're going to need to amend one fund, but it's really going to be the bridge fund that we'll be amending. And I'm going to turn it over to Pam a little bit, because how we're going to amend that budget is really based off of either new revenues that she has received that weren't budgeted for, or some of it has been money that's been in her sinking fund. So Pam, go ahead and kind of talk to us about the bridge fund and amending it.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attempt not to mess up sharing my screen with you guys, which I've already done once today. So are you guys looking at my spreadsheet?
Yep, although we are very zoomed in.
Okay, let me. Our brave new world. Okay, so this is the bridge fund spreadsheet. As I spoke to you guys, both during my budget hearing last year and at mid-year, if we had the ability to get the permitting and the design done on the 3 bridges on North 14th Street, we were going to pull money from our sinking fund to help defray the cost of those bridges. I had thought there was $1 million in the sinking fund. Dennis informed me yesterday there's $800,000 in the sinking fund. So we would like to pull the $800,000 out of the bridge sinking fund for construction of the 3 F Street boxes, or the 3 14th Street boxes, which the board has already approved the contracts for. In addition to that, you may recall from last year's budget meeting, and really even from mid-year, we weren't real certain. The Beltway wasn't a foreshore with all the flooding that had gone on. So we had South 82nd Street, which we have had enough money in the highway buyback fund to construct South 82nd Street should the Beltway go forward. The Beltway is going forward. The board has already approved the contract for the South 82nd Street paving, which we were fortunate came in under budget. And so we're asking to take the $1,195,656 out of our highway buyback sinking fund and direct that all towards South 82nd Street. In addition to that, we have from the Federal Highway Administration, the bridge length box culvert K121 on Adams Street, which we were reimbursed $269,000 approximately from emergency response from the Federal Highway Administration, as well as Bridge D88 up on Agnew Road, which we were able to get constructed, and we were reimbursed $177,000 approximately for that. We have county bridge match money that came in after the budget last year. And
Pam,
yes.
can the Federal Highway Emergency Response, was that from 2016 flooding or 2018 flooding, or?
Okay, that was from, those are federal aid routes, and that money was from 2019 flooding.
Okay.
And it's construction that took place, it's 2 things. It's construction that took place in this budget year, and it's reimbursement for that construction. So we made room for it in the budget, and this is the reimbursement, but of course I don't have the authority to spend the reimbursement, and that's again what I'm asking for here. In addition, we had some money from the county bridge match program. I think I've talked about that we get 80% of the money from county bridge match when we bid a project, and we get the remaining 20% when the project is fully constructed. So this is for projects from the previous year's budget. FEMA 2015, we're kind of, I'm not gonna lie, kind of pumped to get E117 is a bridge to box culvert that was, we were reimbursed 75% by FEMA. With that being said, we paid for it out of the bridge fund. This is the reimbursement for that project. It just showed up within the last 4 to 6 weeks. And then we had another 114,000 from roadway repair from 2015 that's also showed up, as well as, super surprise, money from FEMA from 2019. And so I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in my budget presentation, but we have had $19,000 for one of our culvert projects and another $558,000 from FEMA show up within the last 4 to 6 weeks. So that is a total of $3,380,000 and some change. We actually do have projects for all of that money ready to go. And so we, of course, would like the spending authority to go ahead and finish getting all those projects under contract.
So what we will do then, and I was telling Pam, based off of publication notices and stuff like that, that we'll shoot to do a budget hearing on June 9th, and we'll amend our budget so that we can, like Pam said, finish up the contracts for this money that we're now going to utilize. Okay. Any questions on amending her other fund and her general fund are all right. So the only one that we're going to have to take care of this year is this bridge fund. And like I said, we'll plan to do it June 9th. So, you know, I will let Pam kind of go over her presentation here, and then I'll kind of, from there, I'll go out to the portal and just kind of show you her 3 funds out there, and we'll kind of go from there. So go ahead, Pam.
Thanks, Dennis. So just before we really get into the budget discussion, there's one thing, well, a couple things I just wanted to talk about. The biggest thing is our GIS manager, Eric Hubble, has retired during this COVID time. His last day worked is going to be tomorrow. And so Eric and his staff were co-located with the GIS co-location project in IS. It's a position that we have multiple managers now on that staff working together. With that being said, my current budget in the general fund proposes replacing Eric with an engineer 1 on our county engineering work floor, because our main goal, of course, right now is to continue to get out engineering for our infrastructure. So I'm just going to confirm everyone has the PowerPoint that says Lancaster County Engineering Department budget hearing with the new logo, right? Okay, yay. Just, I know we have some people who are watching on YouTube today. And so as we go forward, I always like to have my my contact information. Should any of the public have any questions about this budget, I'm always happy to answer. FEMA money. So we just talked about additional spending authority for FEMA money that came in that I didn't necessarily expect, really based on previous experience in 2015 with the flood. As you may recall, we put that money in our budget for 2016. We never got it. We're still getting some of the 2015 money. Dennis and I talked yesterday, and so far on predicting when and what FEMA will pay, I'm at a 0% success. 0%. I have put all the FEMA money that is remaining to be owed to us based on that it is all obligated and it is all at the state right now. So I have put that in my revenue budget for next year. It is a significant amount of money. Just like previous years, if I put it in the budget and we don't receive it, I will reduce my spending by whatever amount we don't receive. But hopefully we're successful. I'm knowing that it's at the state already. I'm very, very hopeful for. I just want to remind the commissioners that in 2018, we contracted the Transportation Strategy Task Force. The final report was actually issued September 18th of 2018. I've included a summary of the funding gap. The annual funding gap from that report, and I always say that's prior to the 2019 flood, the annual funding gap was $15 million a year for critical infrastructure only. And if you're to take out roads, it's $9 million a year for critical infrastructure only. So during the last couple of weeks, I've gotten some questions about this budget, like, hey, aren't you about caught up? And the reality is we're not about caught up. We're not close to being caught up. And this is the main issue. It does come down to money. So I want to talk a little bit about the highway fund projects. I've put a map up here just so that you can get an idea of the projects as they are around the county. I have not marked individual pipe culverts on this map, but I have marked box culverts, and these are box culverts that are less than 20 feet, because if they're more than 20 feet, they're considered a bridge and they come out of the bridge fund. In addition to that, we're really going to focus this next year on bridge maintenance, as well as asphalt surfacing. And so I'm happy to say with asphalt surfacing, 5 years ago when we started tracking how much of our asphalt is in need of maintenance right now, I think I started with a number like 97 miles, which was 33% of our overall inventory of paved roads. We're now down to some number of less than 40. And so that is exciting that focusing on maintaining what we have is working. I want to talk a little bit about pipe culverts, and pipe culverts continue to be a major issue for us. This photo, of course, is from the 2019, some of the flooding from 2019, where a culvert failed, and this is a road that is in the process of failing. It does look, you first drive up on it and you're like, why is the pile of corn stalks on the road? Followed by, why is there a 15-foot deep hole in the road? So these are obviously very bad days. We have 8,000 pipe culverts around the county, if you count driveway culverts, as well as culverts that cross the road. So here's a photo of our 291 in Roma's district, sadly, that just randomly failed last week. And this is something that our pipe culverts are really getting to the point where we have 10 to 12 of these a year. What happens is we get a call from a citizen that says, hey, I think there's a hole in the road. And that's exactly what happened here. This hole is actually 18 inches in diameter and 4 to 5 feet deep. And so the culvert underneath has completely failed. This is what we're trying to get to where we've replaced enough of these culverts that we're not having random failures anymore, because we really need to have a reliable, resilient transportation system. So we're planning on doing, yes?
Where is that?
Roma, I'm going to apologize. I need to look up the exact cross section of the road.
Okay.
I've remembered it by pipe number, but not by a geographic location. So we plan to do 28 contractor culverts in the next budget season, as well as 20 county culverts. And I want to remind the public, there was a little bit of a nuance in that transportation strategy where the consultant quoted the cost of the pipe only. And so when we're installing pipes by county forces, of course, we still have the cost of equipment and the cost of staff. So it's not only the cost of the culvert that goes into replacing these culverts. On box culverts, we are going to focus on a few of our under 20 box culverts next year. We've really been focusing on our bridge length box culverts for the last several years. We have 1,000 box culverts around the county, and so it's a little bit of a daunting number. a number of those culverts are too short for the road. And so previous engineers with previous road standards made those culverts as short as possible. They don't really fit our modern needs or our current population in Lancaster County with the amount of traffic on these roads. So here's a photo. This is a photo of Q5, which is located on 120th Street, just south of Pioneers Boulevard. You can see the flag, which indicates that the erosion has gone back into the road. And you can see from the photo that this box culvert is indeed very short and doesn't give the public a lot of room to recover should they just slightly leave that roadway. And that, of course, is what we're trying to fix. Q179 has a similar situation. It is on Old Cheney, just east of 120th Street. F179, as well as F29 and F85 are all on North 14th Street. So Commissioner Vest asked me the other day, hey, I thought we were done doing culverts on, doing projects on North 14th Street. And I said, well, I've asked you to give, and I'm going to ask you to give a little bit more. North 14th Street is a major paved corridor that we really need to get stabilized for the future. It has about 3,700 cars a day on some segments of it, and it's our only county paved north-south route. So that's something that we need to really continue to work at. In addition to that, we've talked a lot the last several weeks about foam injection in bridges. The photo shown here, you can see that there's a 2-foot void behind the approach slab to the bridge. This in particular is the Hickman Viaduct. And so we're going to take several of our bridges that have similar problems and see what we can do to stabilize them and stabilize their approach slabs in their area behind the abutment. I've also put 2 bridges in for Shotcrete repairs. And we talked a little bit at one of the commissioners meetings a couple weeks ago about Shotcrete, and it is expensive. And I included this picture because I wanted people to kind of be able to wrap their mind around why it's so expensive. So in the photo, you can see, here's the rebar from the bridge. And what has happened here is from salt and sand being placed on the bridge, as the salt has during rain or water events, has kind of flowed off the bridge and to the edge. What happens is you get a little bit of what we call delamination in engineering, because we got to use those fancy words. What it really means is the concrete kind of chips away. So with Shotcrete, we come in and we chip off all the bad and unstable concrete until you get down to a good surface, and they brush off all the rust on that steel, and they form that back up, and they surround it again with good concrete. And so it's very labor intensive. This is work that we do on larger bridges, and it does extend the life of the bridges. And so those are some maintenance things we need to get caught up on. And then in addition to bridge maintenance, sometimes I go ahead and pick pictures that have employees in. By the way, I never tell the employee they're in the presentation. But this is Eric Hansen, who's one of our bridge inspectors. Eric is probably about 6 feet tall. Here he is under bridge H207, and this is an area where the sediment underneath the bridge abutment is washing away. And so these do get to be pretty serious, large-scale projects. And what I wanted to do is just make sure that we're catching up with our erosion control. In addition to that, bituminous surfacing, again, the fancy engineer word for, yes, asphalt, right? You guys are getting some awesome language today. This is the list of roads that need overlay and repair. The photo is from Northwest 84th Street before it was striped, and I always say there's nothing as awesome as a new slab of asphalt. We're also really trying to get to the point that we're keeping up with our asphalt repair so that we can delay these overlays and replacement for as long as possible. That's why you're going to see in this budget that we're doing more crack sealing. And then also with the asphalt surfacing, we have that we really need to keep up with our striping to make sure that our paint marking on those roads is safe for the public. On maintenance, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the problem that we continue to have with subdivisions in Lancaster County. You've heard me talk about it in past years. We have about 75 miles of subdivisions that we're currently keeping track of. The difficult part gets to be is if it is a $500,000 house that's out, acreage home that's out in the county, only about $45 to $50 of their property tax comes to county engineering, which means that these acreage subdivisions end up being a total loss as far as the amount of maintenance that they need from the county. And so this continues to be a problem for my budget. And this is something that we really need to work together as a group to come up with some sort of solution for, not only for the asphalt maintenance in these subdivisions or the gravel maintenance, but for snow removal in seasons like last year. And so obviously last year we spent a lot of time with snow removal. This year, not so much. We had more ice this year, which is still costly, but not quite as bad as last winter. So as we talk about, as we move then to the bridge fund projects, I wanted to talk about bridge construction, bridge engineering, and new asphalt paving. So here's a photo where you can really see that our bridge and pavement needs are uniformly around the county. We've really focused on bridge construction as well as bridge engineering. So when we get into situations like last year where there's a large number of bridges that have to be closed all at once, it does take about a year to 18 months under a normal schedule to design and get the permits for a bridge. And so if I don't already have the design and permitting, and now I already have the bridge that has to be closed, we look at a really long delay for the public. They kind of start to lose their patience with that. And that's of course where we're trying to get, so we're not in that level of crisis. After this year's budget is over, I'm happy to announce that we continue to work on getting less bridges on our bad list. But at the same time, while we have less as far as a quantity of bridges, the bridges that are left on our list are bigger and more expensive. So we still have, after this year, we'll still have 15 structurally deficient bridges, 4 functionally obsolete bridges, 34 scour susceptible bridges, and 11 scour critical bridges. And I wanted to take a quick moment. Hopefully I'm just gonna make sure, oh no, this is gonna work. Okay, so I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about, oh, not all of these are gonna come up. S179, which is on Roca Road. We've had a lot of concerns about it. When we talk about functionally obsolete bridges, those are bridges that aren't really wide enough for us to get the traffic, modern traffic through. So we do need to work to get functionally obsolete bridges off our system. I had been reporting that we had 4 functionally obsolete bridges that meet the criteria. We actually have 5. So S179 was one of those bridges. As it turns out in county engineering, when we find something that's bad, there's usually something else that is also not so good around it. So S179 is functionally obsolete. There's another bridge that is right by it, just on the west side of the intersection of Roca and Southwest 96, which is Bridge S180, is Bridge S179's bigger sister. And then as luck would have it, there's also Bridge R184. These bridges were all built in 1958, so you can actually see this from R184 on my screen. And they were all built with the federal aid for structures, same contract. So guess what? They're all not that good. And in fact, Bridge S179 was slated to be a federal aid project in 2013 before they changed the federal aid equation. So we do need to, we're gonna need to figure out a way to slide these 3 bridges in, or these 2 bridges in the future, which I just wanna be sure that, it's just an example of how, even though
Pam,
yes.
Are you saying you're gonna do those other two at the same time as 179 as a package, or we're doing 179 first and then budget for the other two at some point in the future?
Okay, so what I wanted to say is there's no way, because that would take, we need a year of design for each of those bridges, which we could run concurrently, but no, S179 has been bid. You guys have recommended award. We're going to go forward with 179.
Okay,
But what I am saying is this is an example at county engineering, how even though we try to make our best plan, because we're in this crisis mode for the infrastructure all the time, the best plan is always changing. And here we have two more bridges that really do need to be a priority. So we're going to have to look at those over the next year or maybe 2 years, and hopefully we can get the funding for those before we have to close Roca Road again, because I know that would not be popular.
No, that would not be popular.
So as we look at bridge construction contracts for the next budget year, Bridge F88 on North 14th Street, north of Waverly Road. We've been working on the environmental permitting for that for about 3.5 years. I'm told we're 6 weeks out. So we're hoping that we can bid that project in the fall. We have Bridge Q110 that is currently closed on Pine Lake, west of 134th Street. This is another bridge that we're hoping to get under contract next year, as well as Bridge N114 on Southwest 91st Street, north of Yankee Hill Road. This is the only access to Denton's well field, and we're trying to get together a interlocal agreement with the Village of Denton and with Lincoln Parks, so that the cost for this bridge can be shared. Lincoln Parks would then put a trail on this bridge also. What becomes a little bit scary for this project is the Village of Denton has informed me that they've lost their Keno revenue, and that their budget has been seriously impacted by a loss of Keno revenue. Bridge E171 on West Bluff Road, east of Northwest 84th Street, is currently closed. It was closed with a flood previous to the 2019 flood. This could be a bridge to box culvert project easily, because it's a smaller bridge. I think we do need to get that one open. Bridge W150 on Southwest 29th Street, north of West Panama Road, is also currently closed. That can also be, we think, a bridge to box culvert project. And so we'd like to try to get that one in next year too. However, based on other needs, the last two of these bridge to box culvert projects may have to be switched out with other structural projects. So when we talk about bridge engineering, what we'd really like to do with this next budget is focus on the resiliency of our system and get some bridge plans together. Now, I don't know that there's going to be a stimulus package for bridges and roads, but I keep hearing rumor that there will be. And the last time there was a major stimulus package for bridges and roads, they had to be shovel ready. Those are the people who got the funding. So we need to get a couple of these projects shovel ready so that if there is federal funding available, we can take advantage of it. Bridges that I put on that list, D88 on Agnew Road has had a lot of trouble since the flooding of 2015. We've done 3 projects out there to stabilize it. It's not stable. I hope it can last until we can find a funding source for it. Whoops. You know, just when you think you're doing good with the Zoom, you kind of lose it a little bit. There we go.
Hey, Pam.
Yeah.
Real quick, was there any bridge or road funding in the HEROES Act?
I don't think there is in the HEROES Act, but I keep hearing that maybe in one of these next ones. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, because that one just went down in flames. I'm wondering how many more of these we're going to see. I hope Congress does more. I'm all for it. But
we'll see.
Yeah.
I think we need to be ready. Well, here's the thing. We need to be ready if it does come out, and we need to be ready because these bridges are right on the edge and several of them are already closed. So we need to be ready. If it doesn't come out, we need to keep coming up with a plan for these.
Yeah. Okay.
Q210, I just talked about, is currently closed. Bridge X129 on Panama Road, east of South 54th Street, is currently closed, and this is the engineering for these structures. Bridge G222 on North 98th Street, north of I-80. We've actually jacked this bridge up twice and extended the piling. It doesn't have a third time, and it really needs some assistance. And then, of course, Bridge E171 and E150 that are also closed. So as we transition on to paving needs, this is a map that you saw last fall at the 1 and 6. We currently have in Lancaster County 8 miles of gravel road that have over 400 cars a day. And we have about 26.5 miles that have over 300 cars a day. These are really our roads that are in need of pavement. And you may notice 98th Street with well over 400 cars a day in its segment that has been graded as a RUTS program. And then also you'll notice Southwest 14th Street with 431 cars a day. And for some reason, I've been trying to get to be able to pave this 2 miles. If we could pave this last 2 miles of Southwest 14th Street, we could have an additional paved route all the way into Sprague, which is pretty substantial, especially given the Beltway construction. So therefore, I have put these 2 projects in this year's budget. Shown on the screen right now is a picture of South 98th Street. We actually have asked for MPO funds to pave this road. We have those funds. Those funds have been approved for the year FY 2023. And so there is a method called advanced construction, or AC. I always hear AP with that, but it really is AC, where we could build the road and then be refunded when the MPO gets the money. And so this road has become increasingly difficult to maintain with its 42-foot top. It's muddy, it's difficult to pass, and it has a lot of traffic on it.
Pam, could you explain that one more time with the MPO and the reimbursement? That's a new concept. Could you explain that?
Yeah, so we haven't done that before. It's really pretty simple. We would build the project earlier than it is in the budget for. And then when the federal money is allocated to the MPO, we're just refunded the cost of construction.
And how long?
80% of the cost.
80%. And how long do you think that gap would be, and how would that impact your cash flow?
It's a 2-year gap in this case. It would depend on when the projects were programmed into the MPO. And so in this case, it would be a 2-year gap.
Okay.
And then I would also like to remind the board that we have 98th Street A to O, where in the right-of-way agreement, we committed to building and opening the road prior to 2030. And if we do not do that, the right-of-way, which we paid millions of dollars for, reverts back to the adjacent landowners. So that is increasingly becoming, as the world moves on, that's becoming a hot topic for us.
That was talked about during my first year, I think, on the Board of Commissioners. And so it seemed like it was a long way away, but it is really coming up now.
If we, sorry, Pam, if we stuck with the current MPO plan, we would be reimbursed. We would get 100% of the money, and if we do it next year, we get 80% of the money.
It's 80%. It's 80%.
It's 80% either way.
80% funded. It's 80% either way. Now
Okay.
Here's where I am at, though. I mean, and I think we need to be aware of this. You know, oil is free right now, or near free. It's the cheapest we've ever seen it in our lifetimes, which means asphalt is cheaper also. So, you know, as we continue to look at that, you know, trying to get some more pavement done while asphalt is cheap would be a good idea. That being said, it may or may not work out. A to O is also in the MPO plan, but it is further out than Old Cheney to A is. And so
So the cost of the county is the same if we do it this coming year as it is if we do it 2 years from now.
when you say the same, Sean, I think that I need to point out that construction inflation, yeah.
I get it. I understand that's a talking in rough ballparks and construction inflation, taking that into account. But there's no, like, if we're paying 300,000, we're roughly paying 300,000 plus maybe construction inflation in 2 years, right?
Right.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that I understood the basics of it. Thanks.
Our current estimate is 1.8 million. And
Okay.
so if we can kind of bench that 1.8 million in our head, while we're finishing up here.
Well, Pam, just one final clarification on that. The ratio of reimbursement from the MPO doesn't change if we do this in this year's budget or we wait till 2023. Is that correct?
That is correct, Commissioner Best.
Thank you.
That is correct.
Yep.
That is correct. With the exception that, construction inflation and asphalt is cheap right now. I can't forecast what.
I heard that. Somebody said that. I heard that.
Right?
No, I do I do think that we appreciate the fact that the construction costs now are cheaper. I mean, frankly, that's our whole argument with bridge bonding too. So I get it.
So some of our, and what I will say to that is, although asphalt is very reasonable right now, formed concrete is not.
Okay.
Formed concrete is really high. It's in high demand. The Beltway has 28 bridges and 40 box culverts, and there's a number of contractors that aren't doing bridges or box culverts anymore. So those numbers continue to be a little higher for us, which is the flip side of it.
Okay.
I would like to say one thing. I would like to say one thing about South 98th Street. That I have traveled on that road. It is really in a rough shape. It's a wide road. It's hard to maintain, and we have the city is really expanding out in that direction. This would be one that would probably be on my top list to get done.
And not to harp the point on 98th Street, I know one of the concerns for me as a runner is how that trail crossing would be handled.
I'm not really prepared to talk about the trail crossing right now. Obviously, we can't afford to do any sort of overpass with it. It would have to be in that grade.
Okay.
That's the Billy Wolf Trail, right?
Yeah. Is it part of the MOPAC? I'm trying to remember.
I think that's Billy Wolf down there, because Billy Wolf goes south from Holmes Lake, southeast from Holmes Lake down to. I always stop at the hill on 95th Street, so I think that's what it is.
There we go. Okay, so lastly, new vehicles and equipment is another area we try to talk about every year. So we are looking next year at 4 4x4 half-ton trucks, 2 1 1/4 pickup trucks with utility boxes for the bridge crews. And then in addition, 2 dump trucks with the sprayers. So pictured is one of the newer dump trucks. Where we're trying to get with these is during the flooding of 2019, we got down to where we only had a fleet of 5 working countywide, 5 of 23 trucks. We have got the 10 new trucks in, and we just need to continue to upgrade that and modernize this fleet. And then in addition, 2 motor graders. Motor graders are the same sort of thing. We were running motor graders when I arrived in office on a 20-year life cycle. 20-year life cycle means that we put $180,000 in maintenance into a machine that we've been buying for about $204,000, $205,000. So if we can reduce our life cycle to 10 years, it means we put about $30,000 maintenance into it. And then of course the machine is still worth about 100,000 when we trade it in. So that's been a goal that I've just been kind of baby stepping to over the last 6 years. So with that, in closing, and Dennis, I'm going to make by the way, Dennis is wearing his, I'm wearing my baby blue suit jacket today, and Dennis is wearing his crushed velvet baby blue tuxedo. Because, you know, we always try to match to show that we're in sync during budget season. Although he wasn't brave enough to be on camera with his. So as we continue to talk, I'm going to assume that Dennis is going to want to drive the OpenGov dashboard. And then what I do want to say on this budget overall is if we talk about property tax dollars and property tax revenue put into this budget request. So it is $1.8 million higher than last year's property tax revenue request. And with that, Dennis, I guess I'll let you take it.
Okay. So I'm gonna share my screen here, and okay, so everybody can kind of see the OpenGov stuff now?
Yep.
Okay, so just to kind of remind everybody, this first chart really deals with Pam's general fund. And her general fund is just a little less than about $4.5 million, which is a little less than a 4% increase. The one thing with the general fund is you will see that basically salaries and benefits make up just about 85% of that budget. With that in mind, this year, as we talk about Pam's budgets, Pam does have a number of employees that are part of the IBEW union. So those cost of livings are also already built into these. Now her general fund's a little bit smaller because I think she's only got about 8 of her 38 employees under that. But when we talk about her other 2 budgets, they're a lot more heavy into the IBEW union.
Pam, do you have any open positions right now that are unfilled?
So the position, well, yes. So also retiring during COVID, just in the last couple of weeks, is our right-of-way manager. So we do need to have a right-of-way manager. Eric's position, I would like the GIS manager position, I would like to replace with an engineer 1. And then we have an engineer 4 position that we have struggled to fill. And so those are the 3 open positions within the general fund budget.
And refresh my memory, who was the right-of-way manager?
Jim Shikowski.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
So within this general fund budget, I'll just let maybe Pam address this a little bit. We talked about the salary side. The other piece that you as the board have been hearing is IS costs.
Mm-hmm.
So IS costs, I think that my IS costs have tripled with the new IS way of figuring out what you're charged. I'm going to take a, Dennis, I'm driving on my other screen, maybe faster than you are. So as we look at GIS information costs, my previous year's budget was 57. Now it's gone up to 79. And then as we look at city information services, my previous year was just a little under 44,000. And then this next year, it's proposed at 147,000. 147,000. And so the way that Mr. Young is now calculating IS services, and I've had a chat with him about, hey, I'm have a little bit of trouble agreeing with you on this, is that he charges a fee for every single FTE. So right now, I don't even have internet outside of our main county office. The motor grader operators, the truck drivers, they don't have a computer. I know that we're gonna have to do something with payroll when we go to the new payroll system, but I have easily 50% of my employees that don't access a county electronic device. In addition to that, then there is a second part of the equation, which is the number of PCs that you have. We're trying to get that number upgraded because there's employees on that list with PCs that I've never met, which means they've been gone for more than 7 years. And then there is also about $1,000 a device for every cell phone or mobile device that email is ported to. And that's how Mr. Young gets to his cost, as well as an annual cost for Microsoft 365. And so that along with that there was an increase in workman's comp to the general fund. Those are the main reasons for the increases to my general fund. So it's I've really tried to keep that general fund very cost efficient and not have growth in it over my tenure, but I didn't make it this year because of those items.
Okay, Pam, I'm gonna jump down to the highway fund, which is Fund 22. And when you take a look here, what you will see is numbers in the highway fund. Expenditure-wise is going to be a little over 17 million, but as you can also see, that is a reduction by about 8%. The highway fund, revenue-wise, is also at that same exact number. So you can see that right now the highway fund is budgeted out. And as Pam mentioned earlier, some of the stuff that's driving the revenues, as she talked about the FEMA funding and stuff like that, that $1.26 million is in here. We've got the transfer set up in here to also budget out so that the budget is balanced. Pam, on here, you want to talk about your highway allocation projection?
Yes, I do. So can you go ahead? It's really hard for me to let you drive, Dennis, but can you go ahead and
I
go
know.
to the revenue budget? Thanks, man. I appreciate that. As I'd like to be the driver. So we have state revenues, and I think it's really important. There was a question at the LEBA elected officials meeting this morning at what budget impacts do we expect? And I do expect my budget to be impacted. The forecast for what that is aren't out yet. And in addition to that, we tried to do some research in our office for what is the lag time. In other words, I've only put 2 tanks of gas in my car since the first week in March, but I don't know what the lag time on getting paid that gas tax revenue is. Is it 2 months? Is it 4 months? No one can seem to tell me that. And there definitely is calculus in the equation for this. And so my concern is this is the projection, this 3.89440. I did get it from NDOT's website. I'm not sure that will continue to be the projection. And just like I said with the FEMA money, if that money comes in at less than we think it's going to come in, then I'm going to have to adjust expenses overall in this fund. The same with the motor vehicle fee. These are flow through dollars from motor vehicle fees. I think it's been interesting to be out and to see how many new cars are actually out on the street. That being said, this is always a really difficult number to try to estimate. Sometimes we're a little over, sometimes we're a little under. We obviously will have to also adjust that. The good news is our incentive payments of $11,250. That's a payment that the county engineer's office gets because I have a highway superintendent's license, an A license. And so I'm going to keep my A license. So we're going to keep our $11,250 set in 1965, by the way. So we have one for good, but those are all areas of concern for me because I do think that we're gonna take a hit in motor vehicle fee and highway allocation.
Okay, so then you can kind of see where I mentioned where to get this fund to balance this year, the general fund transfers have been decreased, as well as the grant transfers, which is that FEMA money, has been increased. So this budget is balanced at this point in time. Pam, you've talked about most of the projects and stuff like that. Anything else in this highway fund expenditure-wise you need to talk about?
The main thing that I want us always to remember with the highway fund, and we talk a lot about the sins of the past with lack of funding to the county engineers department. I think it's important for us to remember that 0 property tax dollars went into this fund prior to FY15. And so it was never the intent of the highway allocation to totally fund your employees and your maintenance activities. I have requested general fund transfers into this fund for the last 6 years. It has helped us dramatically catch up with the maintenance. We're not there yet, but we're not as far behind as we were 6 years ago. So.
Okay, let's jump to the bridge fund. And the bridge fund, when Pam was talking about the additional $1.8 million request in tax dollars, this is where it really kind of comes into play. You will see that her budget expenditures is about $12.6 million, along with her revenues of about $9.5 million. So that's where we talk about how do we make up that difference between there. And really the way that is made up is by the decrease in the highway fund plus the additional 1.8 that is on top of that. When we look at the revenue side of things, there's really not a whole lot of other revenues in here other than once you get past general fund transfers, it starts getting kind of limited from there. Pam's got a couple of numbers in there, I think, for a couple of reimbursements, but revenue in Fund 21 is really kind of limited. We do also include buyback money in there, so you can kind of see some of that money there. The thing that you have to remember is with us amending her current year budget, we're gonna really kind of buy down the road buyback and then really kind of put the bridge buyback kind of into full effect next year.
Right.
Yeah.
Pam, thoughts on your revenues?
I also have concerns about the highway buyback and the bridge buyback and projections of that. That is just of concern. There's a thing about it, and that's that the majority of the bridge buyback money we already have. It's already held in a sinking fund. The highway buyback money, whatever is left over, so to speak, from from South 82nd Street, I'd like to try to use in paving projects for next year. So,
Okay, so really, Pam, when we start talking about these two budgets for like your highway fund, we will keep the $1 million building sinking fund there. And then really for Fund 21, we will really have no cash reserve, correct?
that is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
So Dennis, did you want to talk about the garage fund here or?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about the garage fund a little bit then.
Okay, so,
Hey, actually, just hold on 1 second, because I know we're running up against some time constraints here. We may have to switch me over as Zoom host to continue. Jamie, are we good, or do I need to be host moving forward?
Yeah, the problem is with the meeting open and hosting the social justice webinar, it does not let me establish and host or have two of the same meetings that I set up going at the same time.
Okay, can you make me host and then jump out and then host the other one?
Yeah, my concern is that it will abruptly end your meeting. Let me give it a shot here.
Okay, everyone be prepared for this to fail then.
And if that's the case, what I will do is take just a short break. I will get the social justice webinar started, and then I will have Bo log me in on a system, and I will email everybody a link to resume the Zoom.
Okay, so if this doesn't work, be prepared to take about a 7-minute break.
Okay. Sean, you are host, and I'm going to try and leave the meeting.
Hey, look at that, it worked.
I can still see you.
Yep,
Okay.
we're good. Okay,